Alec Lasley from thehoosier.com joining us.
Good morning. Doing good. How are you doing?
I cannot complain. Lots to talk about. That's for certain. Here at BB's this morning. Too bad you can't join me. First off, I guess let's talk about Travis Perry. Indiana offers 6'2" guard, 4-star guard Travis Perry out of the 2024 class. He plays for Indiana Elite with Raleigh Burgess and Flory Badunga. This is a guy we've heard about, talked about over the course of the year, over the AAU season. This is like the sixth kid that Indiana's offered from the state of Kentucky, I think, which is, again, I just make note of because that's probably 5 more, maybe 4 more than they had offered in the 20 years prior to that, maybe longer than that. But right, regardless, Travis Perry is a lot of Indiana flavor to him, playing with those Indiana kids, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is one that I think a lot of people thought would happen maybe 4 or 5 months ago. He's been on Indiana's campus twice, came for an unofficial visit back in the very beginning of May, and then was actually back for Indiana's team camp in the summer as well. So he knows what Indiana basketball is about. He's experienced it, obviously to a lesser extent without, truly being there for a game day. But, one of the best scorers at the point guard position in the 2024 class. Decent size, 6'2", but can absolutely light it up from the outside. Had 45 points over the weekend against Reed Shepherd, Indiana target back in the day, who had received an offer but eventually signed with Kentucky in the 2023 class. Was 10 of 17 from 3. So this is a guy that, I think a lot of people were really hoping Indiana would get involved with. Kind of has the same moxie that Braden Smith at Purdue now has and Gabe Cupps has as well. But just a much better overall score when you look at that trio right there. But Kentucky offered him a few months ago, and I think Indiana was kind of waiting to see if he was going to jump on that offer right away before they truly got involved. Now it's been a couple months, and he still hasn't done anything with Kentucky. I think that was more of a in-state offer than truly, a lot of mutual relationship there. I think there's still a long ways to go in this recruitment. So I think Indiana waiting to this point isn't going to hurt them, and we'll see what happens. I think Indiana will be a school that is at least involved in this one for the long haul.
Well, we've seen how quickly fortunes can turn when you don't have that firepower. Gabe Cupps coming on next year. Todd Leary talked about him, that Indiana is going to be very glad to have him because he's a playmaker. And his great court vision. I haven't seen Travis Perry play, but being the number 19 point guard in his class, I'd say he sounds like he's playing pretty well at that position too.
Yeah, and again, very different style of play than Gabe Cupps. Gabe Cupps not going to be scoring 30, 40 points every single night. So far this season, Travis Perry's averaging 30 a game. Better shooter, shooting about 46, 47% from 3 this year as well. But just a very high volume scorer, really good all around point guard. But he is a very talented scorer of the basketball, whereas Gabe Cupps is more of that floor general, floor leader, and will get a lot of his teammates involved before looking for his own points. You need both to win, and I think Indiana continues to see that. The inability that they have with this roster right now to have multiple true ball handlers on the floor and multiple guys who can get others involved is something that they're really struggling with, especially if you hit 1 or 2 injuries, which they obviously have, and a significant one to Xavier Johnson, your starting point guard. So, they continue to try to load up with backcourt offers, wing offers, and ball handlers. Obviously, we'll see what happens. Still a ways to go before, that 2024 class is really built out. But Indiana saw the priority and sees the emphasis now, especially after the last few games. And I think this was a smart offer for them to now fully get involved in this recruitment.
As the season has played out, and guys like him can see that Indiana is in need of people like him, and that even when you don't seem to be in need, those fortunes can turn on a dime. The injuries with Xavier and Race Hobson didn't impact that position, but it doesn't matter. They can happen at any time. Just there's a myriad of reasons why there's always going to be opportunities, and one would think that if you earn the minutes, or you have the opportunity to earn those minutes, and you can do so from being a freshman on up. And I've seen CJ Gunn get more minutes than we're accustomed to seeing most freshmen get, Jalen Hochefino aside. But I think that they look at that and say, hey, man, I got a shot to go there and play.
Yeah, and you would expect those minutes for some of these freshmen and, hopefully some of these sophomores to continue to be on the uptick, especially with kind of how the last month of the season's really gone with the, kind of lack of effort, lack of energy with some of the other guys on the floor. But again, if you're a talented player in high school and you're a guy that Indiana wants on your roster, especially the type of maturity mentally that Indiana has targeted here in the high school classes with obviously the 2022 class, 2023 class, and now moving forward. They want guys who are obviously not going to shy away from any sort of competition. And I think you've seen that with especially a guy like Jalen Hochefino, but even moving into some of these future classes and some of the guys that they are truly targeting, regardless of if they see minutes right away, guy like CJ Gunn really, kind of was an afterthought. I think and I don't say that to berate him or anything like that, but obviously when you look at this entire freshman class, probably was the last guy that you thought would really see significant minutes this year. And what does he do when he gets on the floor? He does the one or two things that a lot of these other players are not doing, and that's play with energy, play with toughness. He's going to make mistakes, right? He's a freshman, and you'd rather make those mistakes going full speed than make some of these mental mistakes that a lot of the upperclassmen are doing right now, because you can slow a guy down. That's one of the easier things to do, but it's not always easy to get someone to speed up and play out of their pace, and you'd rather have it that way than the other.
Yeah, and CJ's one of those guys that he knows that Mike Woodson has said it throughout the season. You have to make the most with the minutes you're given, because we've seen, whether it's Logan Duncombe, Caleb Banks, whomever, minutes are not just handed out for whatever reason. And we may not understand why certain players are playing 29 minutes and bringing nothing to the floor, while there's opportunities to give experience to guys who probably could use it, but that's a whole nother question. Anything else going on the recruiting side of things?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we talked a little bit about it last week, but the biggest development over the last week and a half has been the Texas situation, especially with Liam McNeeley. That's kind of solely put, I would say, Indiana kind of in the front seat of that recruitment as it currently stands. January 13th today. Michigan, Arkansas, Oklahoma, kind of those other teams that I would really say are involved at this point. And then you have to go down kind of another level to see where Texas is. Obviously, a lot of uncertainty with what that staff is going to look like. Chris Beard was a significant part of that recruitment. Without him, we'll see what Texas does, but they're going to, have a long uphill battle at this point with probably no real, kind of firm setting on who their next coach is going to be until after the season.
Yeah, and obviously we've talked about paying attention to what teams are doing during the season, and a lot of the people we've talked to said that they don't believe that plays a big impact. But it has to on whether or not you think a player is getting developed or guys are getting developed or not. But, you look at someone like Liam McNeeley, and that's a guy that I think Indiana could use right now in his position. But let's see, where are we? I want to make sure we don't go long on this segment. Raleigh Burgess, Forey Badunga, also two guys on his Indiana elite squad with Travis Perry. And I know that it used to play a role, and with Montverde, we've seen can be a connection. And Indiana has had a good relationship with Indiana Elite over the years, but I wonder if do they look at guys like Logan Duncombe, who is sitting there, and that's one of the guys that I've always tried not to wonder why someone's not playing, because I always assume if they're not playing, there's a reason. And but to a degree, and with what Indiana has needed at certain times this year, I'm like, okay, he's in his third season at Indiana, I believe. Not is that right? Is he like a red COVID sophomore? Is that correct?
Yeah, so he came in with Tamar Bates, so obviously in their first second year, but realistically, only played about 5, 6, 7 minutes last year. Should have been redshirted in my opinion. So you don't lose that obviously that year. But yeah, I mean, he's either been injured or suspended or have some sort of issues throughout the year and a half that he's been at Indiana up to this point. I think a lot of people, especially when Race Thompson went down, thought that he would move into a little bit more of a role, especially with the inconsistent play of Jordan Geronimo and Malik Renew. Obviously hasn't seen the floor up to this point in those 2.5 games without Race Thompson. We'll see what happens. I think, everyone was kind of parading for a one big man system. And if you have Logan Duncombe in there, you can't have Trace Jackson Davis in there. Neither of them have shown, consistent ability to hit outside shots or even take outside jumpers. So if you're going towards more of an open floor, you can't play two of those guys. And I know a lot of people are obviously going to talk about, well, Jordan Geronimo and Malik Renew haven't really shown the ability to do that either. True, but they have a little bit more of that athleticism and versatility that Logan Duncombe doesn't have at this point, and just a little bit more of that strength to guard some of those bigger guys in the Big Ten. I think we'll still see some minutes from Logan Duncombe moving forward, but it's going to be in really spot minute settings, especially if Trace Jackson Davis may, get in a little bit of early foul trouble, or you really aren't getting anything out of Malik Renew or Jordan Geronimo. Those are two guys that do tend to pick up fouls a little bit more frequently. So if that does happen, then you'll probably see maybe a little bit more of a rotation in extended minutes for Logan Duncombe. But, I think you have to still continue to trust the staff. If they're not playing someone, there's probably some sort of reason for that, regardless of how the last 2.5 games have gone. They're in practice every day, right? They're seeing the effort, the plays that some of these guys are making, and I think it's a lot easier for people on the outside to continue to talk about, well, so and so should be seeing more minutes, so and so probably should be on the bench, when you have to have the confidence that the staff is making the proper decisions and the right decisions when it comes to playing time. Obviously, everything else, maybe there are some conversations to be had, but in terms of playing time, I think they're going to put the best 5 guys out there every single time in order to try to win the games. So you have to have the confidence that they're going to continue to do that moving forward.